What's up, tribe? Hope everybody's doing good during this time. I know we all kind of miss the having that group corporate interaction, but one of the advantages I've seen in what we're doing at this point in time, even though we were forced into it because of the pandemic, man, I just see so many advantages in what we're doing right now. Rick's message, his teachings can get out to more people in a timelier fashion. And I just think it's phenomenal that we're no longer limited to having to make a drive to Ardmore and sit in the shack, to be able to enjoy what God is doing with each and every one of us. But I think the thing that has excited me even more than that is the people who have been sharing the devotionals in the videos, the people who've been sharing on the band app, and just writing down dreams and the various different things. Man, I tell you what, this group is so rich with gems. I mean, we would not have been able to experience what these people have, what God has given each one of them, what He has gifted them with, except through this medium. We're able to just be partakers in that gift that they are, and it just energizes me. I mean, it propels me. It's kind of like when I was a kid growing up, black and white TV, aluminum antenna on a 40-foot pole, one station, KXII. You didn't have 500 choices like you do now. But they would occasionally show what's called roller derby. Now, for those of you who don't know what roller derby is, basically what you do is you get two teams. I think there's like 5 per team. You get 2 teams of people who have really, really serious anger issues. You slap some roller skates on them, and you let them roller skate around this rink and watch as they try to give their opponents a concussion or dislocate something. But one of the strategies in that sport, it's kind of like a cross between hockey and what's called professional wrestling. Anyway, one of the strategies in this sport would be for one team member to reach around, grab the arm of a team member behind them, and then kind of in a whipping motion propel them to the front of the pack, because whoever was in the lead at the end of however many rounds they had to go around this rink, they were the winner and the whole team won. And so that's kind of how I feel whenever I'm listening to other people sharing their devotions. I just feel like I'm propelled. And I think we push each other. And as time goes on, we're going to push each other even more, and we're going to stir up things in each other that is just going to be phenomenal. Man, I can't wait to see what God is doing. Now, for those of you who have known me in the past, that I'm kind of teacher motivated, teacher oriented. Decades ago, whenever I would share, I was the guy that always had to have 9 pages of notes and 25 scriptures just to make a point. And most of the time I'd wear people out, and they would be ready to leave long before I was finished talking. But I'm in a season right now. I don't know if it's as I've gotten older or just the season that I'm in at the moment. My mindset has become a little bit more analogous. Everywhere I look, God is either showing me an analogy or a metaphor or a simile, and tying it in with things that He's doing inside of me spiritually and what He's doing around us. And so this is going to be something along those lines. And I will get to a scripture eventually. And I will get to kind of my main point, which is purpose, finding your purpose. But we've had an interesting thing going on where we live. Besides pandemic and global economic meltdowns and things of that nature, we've had something interesting. We moved into an apartment complex about 2 years ago. We're on the 2nd floor, and across from our window to the north is this vacant field. And so occasionally they would come through and they would flag the underground lines by the street, the underground communication lines, gas lines, etc. Flag them so that anybody involved in digging would know where they're at. And then nothing would happen. And so, then the brush hogger would come in and mow down the grass and the flags and everything else. And so this has gone on at least twice, maybe three times. Well, a little over a month ago, this process began again. They would go through and they're flagging the lines. And, maybe something will happen, maybe it won't. Well, ironically, the same week that the state is shutting down non-essential businesses, that Norman is shutting down non-essential businesses. When this thing kicked into full gear and life as we know it takes this drastic change, all of a sudden, all this activity erupts in this field across the street from us. And I know it has nothing to do with COVID-19. It's one of those deals where the financing and the terms, everything finally came together, everybody shook hands, and it's time to start doing something. So all this heavy equipment shows up, and they're just ripping the ground up. I mean, they're digging out this area about 2 feet deep and piling up the dirt on the sides. It's just a mess, but it's fascinating to watch. And so then all of a sudden, now, first off, let me tell you, I know absolutely nothing about construction. I don't even know what some of the equipment's called, okay? Now, I have people in our family and friends who are a part of this group. They're involved in construction. They're going to find my description of some of these things really, really funny, but I'm not going to hear you laugh, so just, laugh away. So anyway, the graders, the backhoes, they come in, they start digging up the ground, they just tear it up. It's a big mess. And then all of a sudden they start hauling in tons of dirt from somewhere else. I know it's pretty dirt, it's kind of reddish in color. But me, I'm absolutely have no clue what's involved in construction. Now, even though I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, I do know that it has a reason for it. And so they come in, they dump all this dirt, and they level it out. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you just ripped up all this perfectly good dirt and piled it up over on the side. You're going to have to haul it off later, and then you haul tons of dirt in. Makes no sense to me, but hey, I don't know anything about construction. All I know is what I'm watching here. So anyway, in this process, I'm watching all these pieces of equipment as they're operating, and I know that they're preparing this bed for whenever the foundation is poured, for whenever the corner posts are set, and they pour the foundation to be ready to build a building on top of it, and it has to be firm, it has to be solid. So I know there's a reason for all of this. But one day I was looking out my window, watching the activity that was going on, and there was this one guy on a kind of what I would call a front end grader. The blade was on the front. It wasn't a huge piece of equipment where it's underneath, like you see on gravel roads and things of that nature. This was probably the smallest piece of equipment out there. But this guy, he would wait until somebody dumped dirt, and then he would go through with that blade and he would level it all out. And he was very good at it. And so I was just kind of fascinated, and I watched him for about 15 or 20 minutes. And you guys have heard me refer to myself as I'm just a tool in a toolbox. And, whenever God needs to use me for a purpose, for whatever he designed me, he pulls me out of the toolbox, and he uses me for that purpose, and then he puts me back in the toolbox, and I'm okay with that. And so I was watching this guy, and I was thinking, he's just a guy in a toolbox, He has one purpose. He's operating the smallest piece of equipment out there, but it serves a purpose. There's a reason there, and he's very good at it. But then, once he levels that dirt out, he just sits off to the side, and he waits for the next load of dirt to come in and be dumped, and then he goes through that process again. Now, he probably could have operated other pieces of equipment out there, but this was his job. This was his purpose. This is the reason why he was there. And a lot of times it was spent waiting for somebody else to do their part so that he could get out there and do his part. Now, this guy probably will never come in contact with the architects or the engineers or the people involved with the design of what they're building. He just has a part to play. And he does it well. That's what he was designed to do. And so anyway, as I was just kind of pondering all this, you heard me share, some of you heard me back in December share about waves. One of the last waves that I talked about was a tsunami. It's one of those where an epic event, an earthquake, a volcano, something erupts out in the deep. You don't know it. You don't hear it. You're not even aware of it. But all of a sudden, this huge tidal wave, this tsunami, comes heading towards the shore. And you can't surf a tsunami. You can't swim. You can't play in a tsunami. You just got to get to higher ground. And once you get safely to higher ground, you just got to wait for the waves to recede. Then you kind of survey the damage, and then you start the rebuilding process. Well, an epic event occurred in China that sent off this huge tsunami worldwide, globally. And everything is just being ripped up and destroyed, kind of like this construction site, outside my window. It just looked like a mess. It was all this dirt had been removed because that dirt it was inferior for the purpose of what was going to be built on it. And so even though it looks like a mess to me, they start hauling the new dirt in and they're preparing to pour that foundation. They're getting that bed ready to prepare for the pouring of the foundation so that something can be built on that. And I feel that's kind of what God is doing in the body of Christ. He's laying down some foundational work. He's ripped up all of the old soil because it was inferior. He wants a firm foundation for what lies ahead. And so we're still in that preparation mode where we're preparing. God's preparing us. He's working on us. But then I went back and started thinking about this guy in the toolbox on this little bitty front blade grater. See, I told you I don't know what I'm talking about. And then the thing that comes in and tamps it down, the big spool on the back of it with the big knobs, have no clue what that's called. But I know it's getting the dirt pressed down so that it can prepare for the foundation that's going to be poured. Now, when that building is built and, people are walking around in that building, they're in the finished product. They will never know the job that guy had. Don't even know he existed. But they are standing on something that he was a part of. They are standing on something that was a part of his purpose, his function. He laid that dirt level so that the next person with their gift, their equipment could come in and the process continues to move on. The people who are in the finished product, they'll never know. They'll never know the pieces of equipment that were involved, the number of men that were involved, the time that it took. Now, I told you I was going to get to purpose, and I know I've taken a long route to get there. But Psalms 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. And you say, well, Gary, that has nothing to do with purpose. But wait, there's more. Decades ago, back when I still worked at UPS before I ever went into ministry full time, I woke up one morning and Psalms 37:4 would not let go of me. And so finally I just had to stop before I went to work. I thought, delight yourself in the Lord. What does that mean? And I'd always heard it, well, if you delight yourself in the Lord, He's just going to give you these things. It's kind of like a magic genie. He's going to give you the desires of your heart. And I thought, there's something more to that. There's got to be something more. So I pulled out my Strong's Concordance. Remember, this is long before the internet was around. So what I can do in 15 minutes now might take me 2 or 3 hours back then. But I pulled out the Strong's Concordance and maybe the lexicon and what have you, because I wanted to know what it meant to delight yourself in the Lord. And in the Hebrew, the root word for that means to be soft or pliable. Well, that just gave me a whole new perspective on that verse. Be soft or pliable in the Lord. and he'll give you the desires of your heart. So as I pondered on that and thought about it and kind of ruminated on it for quite some time, the conclusion I came to is this. If I make myself pliable, if I allow my heart to be soft in the hands of the Lord, moldable, shapeable, then he's going to put his desires in my heart. Because my desires, of course, they're selfish, self-centered. They're molded by the world around me, by what I think success should look like. And God has a whole different set of values. And my conclusion at that time was that God comes and he puts his desires in my heart. But as time has gone on, I've come to the realization that those desires were always there. It was in my DNA. But God has his desires in your spirit, in your heart, in your spiritual DNA, in your physical DNA. He designed you for a purpose. But when he comes, when you allow yourself to be soft and pliable and moldable and shapeable in the hands of God, he awakens those desires that have been there all along. He knew they were there. He put them there. He didn't come and place new ones in you. They've been in you all along. And all of a sudden those desires are awakened. Those spiritual desires of God are awakened. And it becomes a smoldering ember to begin with. And then a burning fire in your bones. And then this raging inferno. And then all of a sudden you realize what your purpose is. Because you've kept yourself soft in the hands of God, pliable, moldable. He's working on you. And then this fire becomes a passion. And that passion compels you, propels you, whips you towards your purpose. Let me tell you something. Once you find that passion and you understand the purpose that passion is for, hell itself will not stop you from fulfilling whatever God has put in your heart, from fulfilling your purpose. Now, your purpose might be a little guy out here on a front end grader, leveling out the dirt. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not sure what mine is. I'm probably just a tool in a toolbox that God's going to pull out from time to time and use. But I encourage you, read Psalms 37. There's so much good stuff in there, but Psalms 37, verse 4. Delight yourself. Stay soft, pliable, flexible in the hands of God. And he's going to awaken those desires in your heart that gives you the driving passion to propel you and compel you towards your purpose, your destiny, the thing that God has called for you to do while you're here on this earth. And I know I ran over, and I'm sorry, but I couldn't leave you hanging. So, love you guys. Keep the peace.